All right, folks, welcome to another edition of Grassroots Motorsports Live. I'm JG Pastor Jack. Thank you. If you're watching on Facebook, I wish you luck because as a lot of folks know, we have had some Facebook issues today. It's not us. It's Facebook and Instagram are all screwed up. So if you're watching on Facebook, might be an opportune time to just head over to YouTube and watch it over there. YouTube.com/Grassroots Motorsports. This might be the time to bail and just head over there. But if not, you do what you want, and I'm going to let you make that decision. We're going to have a great time regardless. We are talking all about E85 tonight, talking about how much easier it is than you might think to adapt your modern performance car to E85 with our friends from Advanced Fuel Dynamics. We're going to be introducing Gray in just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, while we're here, while we're all hanging out, I want you to do a couple things for me. First off, we have, look at this. We got new Grassroots Motorsports stickers, new little baby Grassroots Motorsports stickers. And if you want some, we're going to be giving away like 10 of these things, 5 sets of 2 to subscribers to our GRM Live text list. So I want you to text GRM Live, GRM-LIVE to 31996. And every Thursday, we're going to be giving away a pair of these. You'll get a text that says, hey, you're entered in this contest. An hour later, you'll get a text that says either, hey, you won or hey, you lost. Try again next week, and you don't have to do anything but be a member of that list, and you might get a couple of stickers. If you don't win, go to our store at grassrootsmotorsports.com, and they're like $1 a piece. So that is awesome. And also, while we're here, please, if you're watching over on YouTube over there, our friend Ben Zebo is giving us a shout out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all the stuff that everybody else on social media asks you to do because it actually does matter to us on the back end. It's stuff for people way smarter than me. So that's how it works. If you're watching over here on Facebook, same thing, likes and shares. If you have a question at any time tonight, throw it down in the chat. We'll do our best to get to it as quickly as possible. All right, let's talk real quickly about the people that make this show possible. They're right down here in the lower left-hand corner, of course, our friends from CRC Industries. On the web at crcindustries.com. Even better, at a major retailer near you, Lowe's, Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Advanced Auto Parts, Napa, O'Reilly. You can get that brake clean, you can get that freeze off, you can get that power lube, and you're getting a great product. You're giving a little bit back to this motorsports community because they support shows like this, events like our $2,000 challenge, and racing at every level. Also, Coney Shocks, coney-na.com on the web, or at great retailers like Tire Rack. If you're looking for shocks for your tow rig, for your street car, for your track car, for your competition car, Coney's got them. Give them a call or check them out on Tire Rack. And Specialty Performance Corporation, spcalignment.com on the web. Control arms, camber kits, roll center correctors, all of that stuff. You've got a BRZ or an FRS, you got a 350Z, maybe you have a Honda Civic or a VW GTI, SPC has suspension parts for it to make it handle better. Check them out. We would appreciate that, and thank you very much for supporting the people that support us. Okay, yeah, and now they're criticizing my use of right and left. Yes, my left, your right. It's right down here somewhere. Let's do a show, everybody. Let's say hi to Gray Frederick here from Advanced Fuel Dynamics. Welcome to Florida. So you actually we had a little bit of a mix up on time. You came in a little bit early, but you got to hang out in Daytona for a day. You had your bathing suit on when you came over here.
Yep.
So I'm
Don't
very
tell my
glad.
boss.
Yeah.
Who's watching right now? Thanks.
No, he was working all. He holed up in our office. He was on our Wi-Fi, working all day. So we're actually getting some great questions from YouTube about ethanol already, which is the subject tonight. One of the things I want to do tonight is I want to demystify ethanol a little bit because I'm somebody who should know better. I had a lot of misconceptions about ethanol, about what it could do, about what you had to do to your car to make it work. And I guess I'll start out by saying, this is our Corvette project. This is a 2004 Chevy Z06 Corvette. And I was curious about what it would take to run E85 in this thing because a lot of people make great power on E85. I thought with a lot of great complications. So I literally just Googled E85 LS6, and you guys came up, and I started.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I started. So good, good on you for the Google juice there. I started reading your website, and your claims were, you get this kit in the mail, you bolt it on, although there are literally no bolts in there. There's
just one.
There's a few connections and a couple of fuel connections. You install the thing in 45 minutes, and you're going to pick up 15, 18, 20 horsepower just like that. It sounded too good to be true. And I have lived in a world my entire life that things that sound too good to be true generally are. So we contacted you guys, we got a kit, it installed in less than an hour with me taking time to snap photos.
Mm-hmm.
It started right up after that. We went to the dyno and we made power with the thing.
Sure.
So I was very happy to eat my words on it being too good to be true. So long setup to say.
Yeah, you're kind of long-winded.
What the hell, man? So tell us a little bit about the company and about how this all came to be, because this greatly simplifies the E85 process.
Well, the founder of the company is named Ryan Truax,
Okay.
and he's been a speed nut since he was a little kid, riding go-karts and mini bikes. Went to Wyotech, got his degree, started making some performance parts, and had his own cars that were fast. And the E85, the first wave of E85 craziness came along, and he said, well, I'd like to play with that. So he started putting E85 tunes on his own cars, and it didn't work out very well. As a lot of people know, if you mismanage E85, it doesn't work out very well.
Right.
And it's not the fuel's fault. The fuel gets a lot of bad press. You have to manage it properly. So he started thinking about, this is essentially free power at the pump. There's got to be a way to make it usable by normal guys. So he started working on the technology to do that. And he came up with the Commander system. First cars that he did were BMWs. So he's kind of his first love was European cars. And then we moved into the domestics. But if I can do a little unboxing real quick here. So this is actually kind of a big box. It's got padding in it, but what comes in a kit looks too simple to work, actually. Most people are, I've been in the aftermarket for about 20 years now, and we were talking earlier about the fact that most things that you buy in the aftermarket need some kind of massaging, there's some kind of catch. You get out of the box and you go, well, I'm going to have to do something I didn't expect. Yeah. I'm assuming from your experience with this car, you didn't have to do any of that.
It was deceptively simple. I mean, really, the most complicated part of the whole process was finding the right little fuel adapter to pop off my stock fuel line, mm-hmm. which had never been off, so it was a little bit sticky. Mm-hmm. But even the lines that you guys send with it are hand
quick release,
hand quick release. So yeah, it was extremely simple and really straightforward, and almost to the point where I literally had doubts until we strapped the thing on the dyno.
So in terms of installation, you just take this and you unplug your own EFI harness and stick this on your fuel injectors, and then plug your fuel injector harness back into this.
Right.
So it's basically an extension cord for your OE harness.
Yeah, it's an intermediate harness that basically goes in between your harness and your fuel injector.
Correct.
And we'll show them that a little bit closer on the car here.
You take off an existing line and put this fuel sensor in between the two lines that we provide. Some cars it's one, there's some different configurations, but that's it, that's together. And you put these back on the OE fittings and plug this thing in to the harness. Right. And then you do run one ground wire. There is one wire in this entire kit that's not a plug.
Yeah.
That's a ground wire. So there is a tool involved, usually a 10mm wrench, which you never have any of.
Yeah.
But the magic is in this little box here. This is called the Commander, and this is a dynamic adaptive flex fuel computer.
And we should point out, there at no point is this connected to your onboard ECU. This is all essentially. datally speaking, downstream of your ECU.
Right, so we're listening to the ECU, picking up fuel parameters and modifying them after the ECU.
Okay.
So this little box is doing everything that your fuel injection system needs without messing with your ECU. There's no digital trace, there's no physical trace. You can take the system off, it disappears. You can't even see this with a scan tool.
Wow.
So this little gizmo here is patent pending. We're about to get our patent on it. And it literally will take any percentage of gasoline and ethanol from 0 to 100. So you can have 30% ethanol, 50, 0, whatever, 85. And it will tune your fuel delivery correctly for that percentage of fuel.
So let's talk about tuning a little bit, because when we went to the dyno the first time, we did not do any additional tuning beyond what had been done in there already. So very little had been done in there already, except to, almost sort of proofread the tune that was in there, make sure it was good. It was essentially a factory tune. So we went there with the stock tune. We have a question now from Max on YouTube. Does it add timing? Well,
no. Let me explain timing a little bit. There's a couple of aspects to timing that people need to understand. Number one, ethanol doesn't make power from timing. Now, in the case of a forced induction engine, it can help a little to advance timing. But we're talking about a different fuel, so there are different rules. And we find sometimes that even retarding spark will make more power, especially in a naturally aspirated environment.
Let's back up even a little bit further than that. Talk to us a little bit about the chemistry of ethanol and what it actually is and why there is more power potential there in it.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a biofuel essentially. It's made from distilled. It's moonshine.
It's moonshine.
Basically,
it's moonshine for your fuel tank.
Yeah, but so corn and sugarcane are the two most.
Yeah, it's mostly corn.
Yeah.
And one of the myths we hear a lot is, well, it's subsidized. We're paying for that through our taxes. It's actually become profitable without subsidies now. So ethanol is no longer subsidized, and it's U.S. grown corn distilled right here. So it's a homegrown renewable fuel, and it essentially is just moonshine. It is corn alcohol. As a matter of fact, you can get a barrel of uncut ethanol and drink it if you want to. Apparently some of the manufacturers like to take a little cut off of their fuel.
Of gasoline in the E85.
Right.
Basically. So where does the extra power come from? What's the additional potential energy that we're unlocking with that fuel?
Well, essentially you can burn more fuel faster with ethanol.
Okay.
So it has a faster flame front, it has a faster expansion rate, and it creates a cooler cylinder charge. So you do put more of it in the cylinder per squirt, but it'll all burn within the timing of the power stroke. Okay. So that's why it makes more power, is that it explodes faster essentially than gasoline.
So this device essentially is listening to the ECU, listening to the fuel trims that are in there, and then making decisions based on the percentage of ethanol going into the motor at that point. How quick? Like what's the processing rate on this thing? How many times a second is it making
the refresh rate is 30 milliseconds.
Okay.
So every 30 milliseconds it checks and adjusts. So it's instantaneous for all intents and purposes. If you go to the gas station and you fill up with the E85, just a real quick side note that's important, E85 at the pump is not 85% ethanol.
Right.
E85 is actually defined as 51 to 83% ethanol. It's just the worst name they ever gave a product. So once you fill up at the station, let's say you end up with a 71% mix, as soon as that fuel, as soon as that fuel hits the sensor, the computer updates. So you've got the exact amount of ethanol being delivered at the injector that just hit the sensor.
Okay.
So it's always accurate. And you asked about tunes earlier. You don't have to tune. We do suggest a gas tune just because you get better results. but you can just take a stock car and plug this all in and go down to the station and get E85. But if you were to change your tune after installation, or if you have a performance tune on board when you do the installation, the system sees your fuel parameters as normal every time it looks at them.
So this doesn't care what tune you have, what additional
Not at all.
hard parts you might have in there. It's doing all of its tuning downstream of anything you've already done, essentially.
Right. So you start your car, it says, oh, there's the fuel parameters. I'm going to modify those. It doesn't care what the fuel parameters were yesterday.
Yeah. So to specifically deal with Max's question, does it add timing? Not specifically, but in a car like this one, like our Z06, it has a very aggressive knock sensor or very aggressive knock sensor calibration.
Right.
We did see additional timing on our data logs because it wasn't sensing any knock, and these will just essentially keep adding timing until they sense knock and then back it off.
Right.
So it's going to depend, I guess, on your specific knock sensor architecture.
Well, so E85 at,
But like you said,
85% is 114 octane equivalent to gas.
Right.
It's super stable. It's actually more stable than diesel in its pure
Wow.
form. So because of that, your knock sensors never hear knock. So they your engine will advance timing to the set limit just because there's never any knock to hear.
So is there more potential available if I go and do a specific E85 tune for this thing? If I took it to say Chris's shop, to VMP Performance,
Right.
where our camera guy Chris works, who did the the initial baselines on this, and we do a specific E85 tune. Is there more power available maybe, or are we splitting hairs at that
No,
point?
there's not more power available because the fuel is making the power.
Okay.
So it's the management of E85 that we're doing better than or differently than an E85 tune.
Okay.
The fuel itself is where the power comes from. But I'm glad you mentioned E85 tunes. So back in the day, back to our founding, when Ryan was putting E85 tunes on his cars and seeing a lot of people lose their engines. So when you have 85% ethanol in the tank, you're going to add X amount of fuel per stroke, okay? If you have 70% less fuel, 30% less fuel, 10% less fuel. If you have an E85 tune and you have exactly E85, everything's gold. But when you go to the pump and you deviate from that, or you have some gas in the tank still and you put E85 and you end up with 56% ethanol.
Or as you just addressed, E85 is not necessarily always 85%.
No, and it'll
ethanol.
change
Yeah.
week to week at the same pump.
Yeah.
You know, it depends on what blend and what the weather is. They change the values of the ethanol percentage. So once you deviate from that 85%, every E85 tune is inaccurately delivering fuel. So let's say you have an 85 tune and 40% ethanol. You're blasting a whole bunch of wet fuel into your cylinder and washing your cylinder walls, which burns your rings up.
Okay.
If you flip that, if you say, you know what, I'm going to try to outsmart this deal and put a 40 tune on, and you go get 85, well, now you're not
Now
putting
you'll
nearly
lean
enough
way
fuel
out.
in, and you'll burn a piston from lean burn.
So if we're using this, best practices then would be to go do a good gas tune, plug this in, and let it
Figure it out.
Deal with the 85. That's fantastic. Okay, I want to get caught up on a couple questions.
Okay.
Somebody asked about applications. So
Okay.
let's talk a little bit about applications and pricing. What am I looking to spend on this, and what cars is it out there for?
Okay, well, as far as applications go, you're going to see BMW, AMG, Ford, Chrysler, Mopar, and Chevrolet. Mostly late model, 99 and up. Again, a quick aside, 1999 is when all of the manufacturers in the OE market started making all of their fuel systems 100% compatible with ethanol.
And that's the other thing we hear a lot is well, what hard parts do I have to? Is it going to melt my fuel pump? Is it gonna melt my
we hear
fuel
that a
lines?
lot.
How many O-rings do I have? Everybody's freaked out about O-rings. You know, what's the
The
answer
truth.
there? Yeah.
So, ethanol hates natural rubber. So if you take your 71 Chevelle and go get a Demon carb with ethanol jets on it, put E85 in, you're going to melt your fuel lines because they're made of rubber.
Okay.
But anything made in the modern era, the manufacturers knew they were going to have to deal with ethanol all the time, so they took all the natural rubber out of the fuel systems. It's absolutely benign in anything made since 98 or 99.
Yeah, and most normal gas anyway is like 10 to 15% ethanol these days.
Yeah, you're running ethanol. If you go to a normal
Yeah.
gas pump and you don't find the one that's pure gas, you're running ethanol in your car all the time anyway. So if it was going to destroy anything, you'd already be paying for the repairs.
So, brands you mentioned, we had somebody ask about small 4-cylinders. First thing I mentioned, first time we talked, I think,
Yes.
was Miata. Are you
Right.
doing Miatas and Hondas? You're on a Miata, it sounds like?
Yeah, we've done a Miata. We've done a couple of Miatas, and they're on the road. There's some fitting work that we have to do. So we have to come up with the fuel line fittings that fit all these cars. And some of them are a little bit bizarre, and we have to source a line, or a fitting. We've done a Prius,
Wow.
believe it or not. The Prius made like 7 horsepower, so it wasn't all that impressive. But
it made your Prius even cleaner.
yeah,
technically,
cleaner
yeah.
emissions than, I mean, if you're going to hug the tree, hug it
Yeah.
all the way, But we've kind of started with big power, big cubic inch, and we're moving our way down into the 4-cylinders. One thing that's changed a lot in the industry is a lot of companies are going to direct injection, which is utterly different than the MPI.
Yeah, and that
we
was actually,
designed for.
John asked about Camaro 2.0 Turbo, which is
Yeah,
a direct injection car.
All you guys with your direct injection, Mustangs and your direct injection BMWs and Camaros, EcoBoost, man, I must get 10 requests a day for EcoBoost. The management system for direct injection is utterly different than MPI. The way they meter fuel is utterly different. So we have been working on it, but it's going to take completely different software and management. So for you guys with direct injection, just be patient and we'll put you on a list.
So yeah, it's on the drawing board. It's coming. Actually, that's a great question from Ben Zivo. How about, is there any kind of universal kit for older cars, or for something that maybe wasn't on the list we talked about already?
Well, we have a lot of swap kits.
Okay.
So you can find a kit for an LS swap, a Coyote swap, the Gen 3 Hemi swap. There are kits for those. We have tons of UTV kits.
Oh, wow.
So the system is compatible with almost anything MPI. The reason you'll see gaps in products on our website is because we take every single vehicle that we make a kit for in stock form, sometimes with a gas tune, but usually just a stock car, put it on a dyno, monitor fuel delivery, monitor AFR, make sure that it's safe, make sure the injectors are big enough, the fuel pump's big enough. We don't sell anything that isn't going to work or that's going to cause a problem. So if you see something missing from our lineup, I get a lot of requests for 325s, BMW 325s. They don't have enough fuel delivery for E85, so we've tested it. We didn't make a kit for it. So anything that you see on the site has been cleared on our dyno, or if there is an injector issue, for instance, the 4.6 liter Mustangs, they have teeny tiny injectors, like 17-pound injectors in them. We actually say on our website, if you're going to run this system, go get Ford Performance or Ford Racing 42-pound injectors and put them in your car so you can run E85.
Awesome. So somebody's asking about a Tesla now. You guys haven't done that one yet, probably.
Oh, we've done 3 systems for Teslas. We just threw them in the trunk and they ran great.
Somebody asked about the answer to the universal kit is
No.
not really, but
Man, again, it's not because we
make
can't.
their phone ring. If your phone rings enough times from the same people wanting the same
Right.
thing, sounds like you're flexible.
Well, our flexibility comes
as
mainly.
flexible as your fuel.
Yes, we're the flexible flex fuel company.
I'm not proud of any of this, by the way.
It's okay. I also think I'm funny. So if we get a lot of requests for something, or somebody contacts us and says, I'm in a huge club of something.
Yeah.
I had somebody with a Legacy GT the other day.
Oh, wow.
A huge group of Legacy GT guys. we want a kit. The first thing we say is, where do you live? We're in Central Texas. If they have a Legacy GT near us and they want to bring it in for fitment and testing, we'll look at making a kit for them and we'll do the testing. So our biggest hurdle is getting test cars in. Yeah. So like for all you Volkswagen MPI guys who want a kit, somebody send us a 2-liter Volkswagen product, bring it to Troy, Texas, and let us test it. Putting the kit together, the actual wiring harness and the fuel lines and all that, that's the easy part. Making sure that the car is okay with the 85 is the biggest concern, which is why we don't just, as I say, if we just wanted to go in one day and look at Rock Auto at fuel lines and start pumping out kits for everything that we could identify the length of a fuel line and the style of fittings, we'd have kits for everything everywhere. But we're careful. We don't want to ruin anybody's engine. We haven't lost one yet, knock wood. We're just not interested in selling something that doesn't work.
Awesome. So how much? What are we talking about to get one of these things?
Most of the car kits are $899. The UTV kits are a little bit less expensive because they typically have like one lead on for a spark plug. For a fuel injector, no spark plug leads. If you look at the horsepower per dollar, we really compare very positively to a lot of other bolt-ons.
And you guys are actually having a sale right now, too.
And we have dyno sheets.
Yeah.
How many people put on headers, I'm going to make 30 more horsepower, I made 8.
Yeah.
So you can actually depend on what we're promising.
That's awesome. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a little break. I gotta pay some bills. And when we come back, I want to show you the install on the Corvette. And I'll show you our dyno sheets that we generated from our car at Christian's shop, and take some more of your questions. It's going well so far. Before we go into the break, though, if you missed it before, we have these little baby grassroots stickers now, you guys. I know some of you have ordered some, but if you want to win some for free, subscribe to our text list. So I want you to text GRM Live, GRM LIVE to 31996. You're not going to get anything weird. It's literally just like show updates. If we have a schedule change, if we have guests coming on, like every once in a while, like a 2 a.m. ambient text from me, but nothing super weird. But if you subscribe to that list, we're going to give away a pair of these stickers, actually 5 pairs of these stickers every Thursday. So you'll get a text that says, hey, you just entered a contest. And an hour later, you'll get a text that either says, hey, you won that contest that you didn't even know you entered, or sorry, you lost that contest, try again next week. But we'll be giving away 5 pairs a week of these stickers to that text list as long as it continues to grow. So that's what we're holding hostage. So text GRM Live to 31996, and that's it. What else are we doing? Oh yeah, we're doing a Christmas in July sale. $10 subscriptions. Go to grassrootsmotorsports.com. Go to the store. You will find those in there. Great time to get a new subscription or renew. $10 for a year. That's new or renewal, and we only do that for a very limited time every year. And that's going on now. Also, I want you to give a spare thought for the folks that make this show possible. Talking about, of course, our friends from CRC Industries on the web at crcindustries.com. Even better, go to Lowe's, go to Home Depot, go to Walmart, go to Harbor Freight, go to any major auto parts store. You'll find Brake Clean, you'll find Freeze Off, you'll find Power Lube. And you're buying that CRC stuff, you're getting a great product, you're giving a little bit back to our motorsports community. You're supporting great events like our $2,000 challenge coming up in October. Also, check out our friends at Coney-na.com. Shocks for your tow rig. Shocks, we had Coney shocks on a motorhome we used to have. Shocks for your Miata, your 240 SX, your VW GTI, your BMW 3 Series, whatever you are driving, wherever you are driving it. Coney has a shock for you. Coney-na.com on the web, or at major retailers like Tire Rack and SPC Industries, Specialty Products Corporation, spcalignment.com on the web. Control arms, camber kits, camber bolts. What are the roll center adjusters, the camber correctors for the rear of Honda. When you slam a Honda down on the ground and the rear wheel go like that, you got to put different lower control arms on it. SPC has them. You got a BRZ, you got an FRS. SPC's got a lot of fantastic setups for you. spcalignment.com on the web. We'll talk about next week's show later. We will give us. Brandon wants to see a close-up of the flares. Well, you know what? Just because you asked nicely, we'll take you back there and show you a close-up of those later. But let's take a look under the hood now and show you our install. So Chris, come on over. So is every kit as easy to install as this one was?
Oh yeah.
Because it was amazing. They're basically, you can now it's too far away from me now, but there's a hose over there that goes from the main fuel feed to the flex fuel sensor that you guys supply, and then to the fuel rail. So it essentially just interrupts the fuel flow, and that's the sensor portion of it. There's the brain box, which plugs into the harness over here, which I just have tucked behind this because I haven't taken the time to properly mount it yet. Actually, I tried the double stick tape you guys sent. It wouldn't stick to this very well. But so get your double stick tape department working on that.
But did you find the piece of bubble gum in there? It's pre-chewed. All you do is.
Our mailman must have got to that. And then there are these intermediate harnesses that on this car, it's all hand operated. They'd essentially just plug in between your injectors and the harness you guys send. So it's literally as easy to install as it is to take the leads off of your injectors. I mean that's really all there is to it. So you're telling me that basically all your kits are there's nothing that requires a bunch of hard parts, nothing that really requires.
No, unless you have a rare application that needs an injector upgrade. Essentially, 90%, 98% of our kits are just plug and play. We like to say more power in less than an hour.
That's pretty impressive. Somebody earlier asked about cold start, and
Sure.
In Florida we don't really have to deal with cold start very often, but I do understand that in some environments or with a start that you haven't started the car in a few days, E85 can be a little trickier on that stuff. Are there any? Do you notice any of that? Are there any starting issues with any of this stuff?
Yeah, you'll notice it a little bit. Below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, if you have more than 50% ethanol, it's going to be a little bit harder to start. Most cars now use cat temperature to tell the brain, hey, keep running.
Okay.
So you light it off a couple of times to get the cats hot, and then for the rest of the day, it wouldn't have any problems. But that's why sometimes you'll hear winter blend. Winter blend just means they've taken some of the ethanol out to make it easier to start in the winter.
Okay.
It is a cold fuel. One of the reasons you get a cooler cylinder charge and cooler oil temperature, it just makes a cooler charge. And
that's one thing we've been noticing as well. Actually, I'll show you the dyno sheets in a minute, but we've been seeing much cooler oil temperatures. So normally, I kind of know how fast we'll hit, 295, 298. We're still hitting those temperatures eventually in like a 20 or 25 minute track session. But this has given me 2 to 3 more laps in a lot of cases before I'm seeing those temperatures. And I have to start making the decision, okay, I'm not going to go any faster in this session. It's still not creeping up into oil temps I'd be worried about, but it's giving me a lot more, or a lot less general heat going into the oil. Is that just kind of a physical characteristic of the fuel?
Yes, absolutely.
So.
Your oil temperatures, we'll see usually 15 to 20% drops in oil temperatures. Your coolant temperature is going to drop. Your cylinder, again, internal cylinder temperature is going to drop. So your engine's going to run cleaner and cooler. As a matter of fact, some people call us and say, hey, I just put my kit in, put E85 in it, and there's black smoke coming out of my tailpipe. They're freaked out. And we say, well, that's because it just washed all the carbon junk out of your engine, and, ignore it. It'll go away in a minute.
Yeah.
But we've scoped an engine that was all carboned up and put E85 in it, ran it for about 15 minutes and scoped it again. Engine looked brand new inside. It cleans your engine. So
what is the catch? Is there a catch? I mean, there's there's only one station around here that sells E85, so I'm thinking maybe availability is part of the catch, and then there's the fact that you do have to use more of it to produce the same amount of power. But how much more are we talking about using? What does that do for our demands on injectors? I'm
glad you asked that.
On these kits. How much is it? Basically, you have to kind of figure out how much headspace you have on your injectors.
I just can't wait to answer the injector question. But I'll answer the other two first. Anybody that's running ethanol, check out E85prices.com. That is not our website. It is actually the Renewable Fuel Association's website. It has every E85 pump in the country on a map. You can look up your location, and it even has the price that's at the pump today. So it's a very good tool. We use it all the time. So you get about a 2 or 3 mile per gallon knock usually.
Okay.
But it's so much less expensive at the pump than 91, 93 octane race gas, certainly.
Yeah, our local, I paid $2.15 a gallon for our local E85, and premium was right at $3.
Right.
So
even if you lose a little fuel mileage, your cost on fuel usually goes down, and you're making more power while you're spending, even if it's the same, you're spending no extra money on fuel and making more power. Injectors. Man, Ryan, the founder, this really crawls up his back, so I have to give him his due. Injector's native position is wide open.
Okay.
So you cannot run an injector at too high a duty cycle. At 100% duty cycle, your injector is what it would be if it was just sitting there. A lot of people say, well, if I run my injectors at higher duty cycle, I'll stick them open. There is no mechanism in your injector to stick. There's no way that's going to happen. So we're running the injectors at a higher duty cycle than stock, obviously, because we're putting more fuel in. Right. But we're not gonna ruin your injectors or make them stick open.
So you're basically looking at essentially your total capacity on your injector. Now, one of the things that we had changed on this car, we had already installed a set of, I believe there were 45-pound injectors, which are an upgrade from the factory 24-pound injectors. But what I'm seeing on your website is all your LS applications, stock injectors still have enough
overhead, we call that,
overhead capacity space left to run these. But there are some cars like the 4.6 Mustangs you mentioned that you may want to start looking at an injector upgrade. What percentage of your applications are fine with the stock injectors?
Well over 90%.
Okay.
Because if a car is so far off the mark that it's just too expensive to run E85 because of the other things you have to do are too complicated, we just don't make a kit for it.
And it's probably easier to make that power some other way anyway.
Sure.
So, okay, let's take a look, before I forget, at our dyno charts. Actually, let me see if I missed any questions here by walking away. Everybody wants to see the flares. And my mom's watching now. Awesome. Hi, Mom. So let's take a look at our dyno sheet. So we went down to the shop that our camera guy Chris works at, down to VMP. This is our stock pull. Now, so this is our Z06 is a 2004, basically bone stock. We've got a fast intake on there, but it's darn close to 100,000 miles. So we were looking at a baseline 366.5 horsepower, 357.2 peak torque, and this has been confirmed on a couple different dynos. This was a dyno jet at VMP, and we literally just drained the fuel and popped in the E85. And when we did this test, it was running about 65% ethanol, and here's our numbers with the ethanol. So we picked up 17 pounds of torque, almost 14 horsepower, just by changing fuel. And you can see the curves are are nearly identical. Yeah, I think any curve difference is basically down to dyno noise. But
Well, one of the things that is really great about ethanol, if you look at these curves, a lot of power adders that you put on will add power in a small part of
Yeah.
the power curve. So you can really feel it because that extra power is available pretty much all through the rev range,
Yeah.
which you can see on these curves.
and that was with an indicated 65% ethanol. Is there an ideal number? Because we're never gonna, like, we may get pure 85, but as you were telling us before, chances are there's going to be some variation from tank to tank.
Yeah.
What's the sweet spot for what
We
should I
see
have?
great results at 70 to 75%.
Okay.
You get some diminishing return above that, and most pumps you'll find
About oil, if there's going to be any sort of impact on the oil, contamination.
Man, that is so weird. I had somebody ask me that on an email today, and it's the first time I've ever heard it, so I'm bound to hear it a third time sometime in the next few days. There is no impact on the oil. I mean, if you're burning the fuel in your cylinder and your rings are sealed, there's really no opportunity for you to gum up the oil anyway. So, again, that comes from management. So if you had an E85 tune, back to that, and you're running E60, you're going to have a bunch of unburned fuel in your cylinder. That's where you can have problems. But if you're managing it properly and you're burning all the fuel, it's not a problem.
And as we talked about with this is adjusting that tune constantly in real time.
Right.
So it isn't like you have a locked-in tune. It's always delivering the same amount of fuel, it's always delivering the same engine parameters when your fuel may vary wildly from tank to tank.
Right, and you asked me earlier, what do I do if I can't find an E85 station? Well, with our system, you
Go
fill
to a
up with
gas
gas.
station, yeah.
And even with a fixed map tune, you might have a gas tune on a handheld under your, in your glove box or whatever in case you have to get gas. But you've still got E85 in the tank when you pull into that gas station. So chances are you're not getting E10 or pure gasoline at the pump.
Right.
You're pumping it into ethanol. So you're going to get some blend that your computer is not going to be happy with your E85 tune or your gas tune. You're going to be living somewhere in between and risking damage to your engine.
Okay, let's talk about a couple more, I don't know if they're myths or a couple more rules of thumb that I've heard that everybody knows about E85.
Great.
One of them is you can't store E85 and you can't leave E85 in your gas tank, or it evaporates and it's gone. It loses its mojo or whatever. So how long, like I got 2 jugs of it out there that I didn't use at a track event a few weeks ago. Are they no good now? What's going on with those?
You ever seen one of those pirate movies where they land on the desert island and they dig up some rum? And they're like, heck yeah, like 500-year-old rum, and they sit there and get drunk because the alcohol's still there.
Okay.
It's alcohol.
Okay.
It's volatile, just like gasoline. So if your cap was open or whatever, or you have a barrel out there with the top off, it's going to evaporate. But if it's stored in your tank, there's not that much evaporation.
So store it as you would gasoline and expect the same type of performance from it. How about, is there anything like I don't want to be a conspiracy nut, but I think a lot of the information I have has been from the oil industry producing this information and probably,
they lobby pretty hard against corn.
Lobbying fairly hard against corn. So I'm trying to not be paranoid, but I'm also trying to, separate the wheat from the chaff, as it were. Is there anything like, will UV destroy it? If I store it in a non-opaque container, it's no good. Is there any sort of weirdness?
You mean like a vodka bottle?
Yeah. Okay. There you go. So is there any? Am I missing anything here? Because it seems like
or a mason jar in the case of moonshine.
That's true. It seems like there should be more of a catch.
There's really no downside. And what I like to tell people who are digging for the truth, like, come on, man, what's the downside? Yeah. If your engine was not tuned for gasoline, if it was something else, let's say it ran on Kool-Aid,
right?
And somebody said, you know, if you put gasoline in your car and manage it right, it'd make more power. Oh, well, gasoline's bad. There's nothing wrong with a different fuel as long as the car is prepared to run that fuel. So if cars had been running on ethanol, which by the way, they've been using ethanol as an octane booster since like the 30s or 40s. But if your car was an ethanol car and somebody came along and said, hey, I've got this great stuff, it's called race gas. You go, yeah, okay. What do I have to do to my car? Well, you have to turn down the fuel delivery and, you know, play with timing. Oh, hey, no, I don't know. It's just another fuel. There's no magic to it. It's not spooky.
Yeah.
So many people ran E85 tunes and squirreled up their engines. So many people ran it with natural rubber fuel systems.
But they screwed their engines up because those tunes were inflexible and were based on a certain percentage of ethanol that might vary at some point, and that's when the weird stuff happens, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, even now, some of the newer Mustangs have something you can do called a flex tune, where it uses the oxygen sensors to sample exhaust gas, and it keeps testing for lean rich, and eventually it figures out, oh, I've got a different fuel in there, and it changes the fuel delivery, and it can take up to 40 miles.
Oh, wow.
So there's even guys with newer Mustangs who have the Ford system working, and I'm not trying to diss Ford, it's just a fact. If you go and fill up with E85 and take the car to the track, we just saw a local car that lost an engine over this. You take the car to the track, you're not gonna run 40 miles at the track, you're gonna run all day on gas delivery.
And it's gonna have that
with
gas
the 85
tune.
in the tank, you're gonna end up leaning out your engine. So it's very slow, it works fine if it can catch up. But the fact that this is real time protects the engine. But what I'm saying at its core is there's nothing wrong with the fuel as long as it is managed properly.
Yeah. And we've been seeing, I went from going through about, I think I said before, about 3 gallons during a 20-minute session to about 3.5, maybe 4 gallons during a 20-minute session. So I'm using, you know, what, 20% more fuel maybe, but I'm paying 30% less for it,
Right.
and it's keeping my oil cooler, it's keeping my engine cooler. So I have not seen the catch yet. I'm digging it. Let me sneeze first, or not. See, I walked over here and it was fine.
It's the fan.
Yeah, it's got to be. Chris, while I'm finding the keys to this thing, show them the rear flares. Somebody wanted to see a close-up of the rear flares. This is the rear flares with our 10.5-inch wheels on there. So they're a little bit of overkill with the 12-inch wheels in the back. They look great, but I mean, come on, they're $25 flares. You can't expect them to fit perfect. Oh, the keys are in it. So let me fire this thing up and I'll show them the app, because you guys have a really cool app. So that was basically I started up a couple hours ago. I mean, that wasn't a dead cold start, but it you know, I turned the key and it started up. So
that's good.
Yeah.
I've heard that's not common with your cars.
Yeah. So let me find the app here. ProFlex Commander. So you guys have the unit in there is Bluetooth compatible. Make sure I'm close enough.
Yeah. So the Commander has.
There's our current ethanol percentage.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I'd love to have that.
Okay.
So this is what the sensor is telling the computer, the Commander.
Okay.
So this is just a snapshot. If you want to tune your percentage, you know, either you want to run 78%, you can use this to tune it. For the most part, it's just cool. It's an ethanol gauge.
Right.
But so you can see it changing. So that's actually changing your fuel delivery.
Okay.
So your return line's mixing the fuel up, and it may vary a little bit as it goes through the sensor. And each time that happens, the fuel delivery is that precise.
Okay. And it smells great.
Yeah, it smells like popcorn.
Yeah. So I said it before. things that appear too good to be true usually are. I was very, very glad in this case to be proven wrong on that, because I'm really impressed. Anything that I can do in half an hour and take to the dyno, and it makes power across the entire rev spectrum, that's pretty impressive. So congratulations.
Well, I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. So that's the story on Advanced Fuel Dynamics. $900, 20% off right now.
Yeah,
right?
4th of July sale. Get it while it's hot.
We'll throw their website up here. Did I miss anything? Or anything that I'm still looking for my mind is still poisoned by all of this oil company lobbying in my head.
I would love to tell you.
I'm still waiting for somebody to say, oh well, yeah, you're on E85 and you're gonna blow the back wall off your garage at some point.
I would honestly like to tell you, because I've been in the aftermarket for so long, I know people just can't believe that thing. When I interviewed to work for this company, I was like, no way. I've been putting parts on cars since I was a little kid, and nothing ever does exactly what it says it does, and it did. So, take it as a win, order it and put it on your car, and then wrestle with your headers that bump into things.
Yeah. So Jesse's asking about, talk about the lower burn temp effects. Is it better for your engine? Well, yeah, obviously less temperature is going to be better for longevity. I mentioned earlier, we're seeing at the same amount of on-track time, we're seeing about 15 to 20 degrees less oil temperature for a given amount of track time. So it's essentially giving me, a couple more full throttle laps in every session. We kind of shoot for a target oil temperature and engine temperature where we perform the best, and once we exceed those, we know we're not going to go any faster, so we back off. But yeah, it's essentially giving me additional laps during like a time attack session. What else are we looking at with those reduced temperatures?
Well, engine longevity. Yeah. I mean, we have an M3 that we sponsor on the track, and he says he's the only car on the track that can run all day without a cool down session. So it makes a significant difference. Heat is the enemy of the engine,
What am I going to see is I'm looking at the rest of my schedule for the year, and I've got to go to Lincoln, Nebraska for the Solo Nationals.
Oh, there'll be corn there.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be plenty. And I've got to go to Kentucky for the Time Trial Nationals and other events. Part of when I went into this, I was a little paranoid about, like, wow, do I need to invest in a bunch more fuel jugs and be taking my E85 with me all the time? Is the E85 that I buy in Nebraska or in Texas, can I rely on it being fairly consistent? What's the standard?
Yeah, it's pretty consistent. I mean, if you were to go to Nebraska in the winter, you might find some pretty low blends.
Okay.
But it's pretty consistent. You can, of course, buy E85 barrel gas that is race certified E85. You can buy that, but generally speaking, it's not necessary.
Okay. So, and we can, you mentioned earlier, what, E85prices.com?
E85prices.com.
Yeah, and also the alternative fuel database. I think we have a link for that too. Another good site to find that. Max. Max wanted to know horsepower. Yeah, essentially we picked up 15 horsepower and 18 pounds of torque. So we were at like 380 horsepower, 370 something pounds of torque. It's
and that was at what percentage? 60.
That was at 65.
65.
So yeah, we should be even a little more at 73,
yep.
As you were saying. So yeah, I'm sold. I'm now going to go through and clean all that wiring up and make it look nice, and because that's staying on there. I am really impressed, and just the fact that it's it's $2.15 a gallon. And I can buy it at a convenience store that has fantastic coffee.
What did California just added, like 40 cents a gallon or something as a gas tax?
Yeah,
I am sure we're going to be bombed.
Are you guys CARB approved with this?
We're not CARB approved. We approached CARB. They said there's some kind of a renewable fuel certification that's separate from CARB, and there was a whole lot of paperwork involved. And they said, you're cleaning up emissions. You're probably not going to have anybody come kick down your door for making the car cleaner. We have a customer out in California, a tuner shop that does Hellcats, and they're running a Prius back-to-back with a Hellcat with one of these systems on it, and they're pretty convinced they're going to get lower emissions out of a Hellcat on E85 than a stock Prius running gasoline.
That's awesome.
So we may not be carb approved, but we certainly are carb friendly.
Yeah, right. And yeah, Jesse's asking about fuel mileage. Yeah, we're seeing 15 to 20% more consumption on track. On the street, it sounds like what you were telling me is street mileage is not gonna decrease the same way track mileage is, because you're just spending so much less time at full throttle.
Right, and you see, 2 or 3 miles per gallon less, but when you add up the fuel cost of, 93 octane or 91 in California versus the cost of a gallon of E85, you usually save money on fuel. But even if you don't, you're making more power. When can you add power and not consume more fuel?
Yeah, it's awesome, and all the side benefits. Well, I'm impressed. Gray,
well, good.
Thank you very much for coming by.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Gray Frederick. Check them out at advancedfueldynamics.com. We are 2 thumbs up from the GRM squad here. Do some housekeeping before we go. Told you about the little mini stickers. You can get some by subscribing to our text list. Here, I'll give you a couple right now. See, that's how easy it is. Text GRM Live, GRM LIVE to 31996. The only thing we use that list for is show schedule updates, what's coming up, if we're changing the schedule, who our guest is going to be that week. It's the only, we don't try and sell you anything. It's just show updates. We're going to give away 5 pairs of these things every single week to 5 different people on that list. It'll be kind of an automatic contest. So go ahead and subscribe to that, GRM Live to 31996. Also, I want you to check out the folks that make this show possible. Folks like CRC Industries on the web, crcindustries.com. Even better, at major retailers near you. Our CRC shelf getting a little funky over there because we're using the stuff so fast. We go through a lot of that stuff here. We have been fans of theirs longer than they have been fans of ours. We are very, very proud to have them aboard and supporting not only this show, but all kinds of events in our community. Also, I want you to check out Coney Shocks, coney-na.com on the web. Shocks for whatever you are driving, wherever you are driving it. Coney's got them. Check them out on their website or at major retailers like Tire Rack, and SPC Industries, spcalignment.com on the web. Control arms, camber kits, everything you need to make your car go the right direction and handle fantastically while it's doing it. spcalignment.com on the web. Next week, we got a really cool show next week. This is a show that I've been wanting to do forever and could never really track down the right person to help me with. We've got a guy who is a professional musician, a professional sound designer, and a car enthusiast. And we're going to talk about what makes certain cars sound more awesome than other cars, breaking down the physical properties of those sounds from both a musician's perspective and a technical perspective. Just why do some cars sound awesome and others sound like hot garbage warmed over? This is a show that I've been wanting to do forever. Take a technical approach to this very emotional aspect of why we love cars. Why do they sound cool? So we went out and found essentially an industrial musician that loves cars, and we're going to talk to him about that next week. Very, very excited to be doing that show finally. So join us for that. Thanks to everybody that commented tonight. Thanks. See if I missed anybody. I did not miss any questions. And thanks for putting up with the weirdness on Facebook today. Hopefully we got through to everybody. I did see a couple of quick pauses, but I'm glad Facebook got their act together and that we were broadcasting once again. Folks, we'll see you again next week. Thanks to Chris behind the camera. Thanks to Colin working our social media tonight. Thanks very much to Gray Frederick from AFD for coming out and sharing this with us tonight. It is rare that I am just kind of blown away unexpectedly by a product. This is one of the few things in recent memory that has performed better than I expected. So good on you guys. We are excited. I'm JG Pasterjack. This is Grassroots Motorsports Live, presented by CRC Industries. We'll see you again next week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern. Happy Independence Day, everybody. Do not blow your fingers off. And if you do, make sure to email me pictures of it. We'll see you next week, everybody. Good night.